What if the Philadelphia Eagles ended up winning Super Bowl 57? How would things have gone differently after that? What if before that they never traded for A.J. Brown? Our What If series returns on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome into this Wednesday edition of the show. We are brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Thanks so much for tuning in. Normally, each and every day, Monday through Friday. For the next week or two, we are in off-season mode, so just a little programming note. We are going to be doing 3 to 4 episodes a week. On top of, actually, you're still doing 5 to 6 shows a week because we also have our live Locked On Eagles squad shows every Tuesday and Thursday at noon on YouTube as well. Those are also posted afterwards on all of our podcast platforms. Once training camp gets closer, then I will also, for our solo shows, Monday through Friday, we'll be back to doing a daily podcast. But right now, just for a couple weeks, just want to let you guys know if you're wondering why episodes aren't dropping each and every day. We are down to 3 to 4 episodes a week for just a couple weeks. Then we're back to Monday through Friday. I thought today would be a good time to bring back one of, if not my favorite series that I've ever done on the podcast since I took over in that 2018 offseason after the Eagles won Super Bowl 52. Like, I'm somebody that loves to go back into history. I love to reminisce. I love nostalgia in sports, but I also love a good what if. I like to think about scenarios. Like, you guys know, that's why the offseason I honestly like better for the podcast than the regular season. I love free agency. Like, if the Eagles, sign this guy at this position, what happens at this spot? Do they have enough salary cap space? What if in the draft they go here? Like, that's why I love mock drafts, scenarios, and what ifs. Like, that's my favorite thing to talk about in sports, especially in football, especially with the Philadelphia Eagles. I haven't done this series in 3 to 4 years because we've had to let some more history play out, but I think it was in 2020 during the COVID, after Carson Wentz's NFC East championship run in 2019, during peak pandemic, like after the 2020 NFL draft when they took Jalen Reagor, we brought up our What If series. I'm bringing it back after 3 years because now there's been a lot that has transpired, including some big events in 2022 that I want to talk about today that I feel like have really propelled the Eagles into this golden era in their franchise's history that have led to 2 Super Bowl appearances and yet another championship in Super Bowl 59. So today, as we bring back our What If series, we have 2 big questions to discuss, and we'll do that in segment 1 and segment 2. The first one is, what if the Philadelphia Eagles won Super Bowl 57? How do the 2023 and 2024 seasons change if Jalen Hurts gets it done? If James Bradberry never holds Juju Smith-Schuster and Hurts gets the ball back and he leads them down the field yet again for a game winner and they beat the Chiefs a couple years ago. Like, how do these past 2 years differ? Do they change anything at all? I want to get into that. And also, before that, that draft is what I think kickstarted the Eagles' new era of being a consistent Super Bowl contender, and it was this one big move, trading for A.J. Brown. What if Howie Roseman never trades for A.J. Brown during the 2022 NFL Draft? How do things change? What is their plan at receiver? Does Jalen Hurts take the step that he does? Does Devontae Smith, does anything change with his career trajectory over the last couple years? Let's start with that first one, though. What if the Eagles got it done in what I think is the most heartbreaking game that I've ever watched? Like, I had never experienced the Eagles losing a championship, losing a Super Bowl like that. Because in 2004, I'm only 7 years old. I'm watching that game, and not saying I could care less if the Eagles got it done, but a 7-year-old me, brushed that off pretty quick when his new Spider-Man TV show episode came on a couple days later. I was kind of brushing that off. After that, the only real crazy heartbreak that I felt were wild card losses. I guess the first one actually is the 2008 NFC Championship game. That one was the first big game the Eagles were in that I was coherent enough as a diehard fan where I really felt it. Losing that game to the Cardinals as a 12-year-old. Like, that one really hurt. After that, though, I love that 2010 Eagles team, but they lost in the first round. The 2013 team lost to the Saints. I'd say like the next big one was the Alshon drop in New Orleans. Like, that was definitely devastating. But to lose a Super Bowl, I had never gone through that. To lose a Super Bowl in the way the Eagles did, where they go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts has one of the best Super Bowl performances in the history of the NFL. It was literally almost the exact same game script. The game went almost the exact same way as Super Bowl 52 did, only you come out on the opposite end. This time you don't get it done. It's almost like you got to see what would have happened in Super Bowl 52 if it went the other way, like how you would have felt. Because Jalen Hurts had the same performance that Nick Foles had, if not better, and the game was a shootout that came down to the last few possessions. And Mahomes just made the plays that the Eagles couldn't stop, like they stopped Tom Brady in 2017, that 2018 Super Bowl. So for me, like, that was absolutely devastating. And for the team as well, like, it did an absolute number on them in 2013. Yeah, they started 10-1, but losing that game, I think, was definitely a part of the collapse. Like, I think all year, even when they were 10-1, they felt the pressure. I felt like they were just trying to fast forward the regular season and get back to that stage so they could finish off what they started in 2022. Somebody even said, an anonymous source said that was the most miserable 10-1 team that they had ever seen. It was a source from inside the building. Like, that pressure, that overlooking the regular season, I think definitely played a part in their confidence kind of getting shattered down the stretch in 23 and them losing confidence and then them losing in the first round. And that collapse, I think, played an instrumental part in the Eagles bouncing back in 2004 and being able to overcome that rocky 2-2 start. I think losing that Super Bowl helped them win the Super Bowl this past year against the Chiefs. Like, learning all those lessons, that growth, that maturity that they went through together, like the togetherness of that locker room because of all the adversity they had gone through the last 2 years. That's what helped create the 2024 Super Bowl 59 Philadelphia Eagles world champions. And so that loss, it was devastating, but it was also kind of instrumental in the Eagles becoming who they are now. So what happens if it's completely different? What if they win that football game? What if Jalen Hurts does get the ball back? I personally don't believe that you win Super Bowl 59. You'd still have a ring, though. You'd have a historic Jalen Hurts performance. He would have completed that comeback title. Is that better than what we got this past year? For me, no. As much as I wanted that Super Bowl 57 ring, especially for Jalen Hurts and the performance he had, I love the story of the last 2 years, overcoming that loss, overcoming the 2023 collapse, the 2-2 rocky start of 24, the revenge game in Super Bowl 59 against Kansas City, and the way they just completely beat them down. And you could tell how badly they wanted the Chiefs to feel that loss. I loved that 2024 Eagles team more than any Eagles team I've ever watched, I've ever covered. So, no, I wouldn't trade that for the world. I wouldn't trade that for a Super Bowl 57 ring. And I don't think that you get both. I don't believe you do. But at the same time, I don't think they collapse in 2023. And I don't think they make the changes in 2024. And that's why I don't think they would have won it. Because I don't think they collapse in 23. And then if they don't, like, do they fire Sean Desai? Do they get Vic Fangio? Do they get Kellen Moore? Like, does Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman believe the offense needed that outside voice? Does Jalen Hurts kind of start to tune out Nick Sirianni and his offensive philosophy if that collapse doesn't happen and then Kellen Moore doesn't come in and rejuvenate this offense? Like, does Howie Roseman try these new creative things last offseason, like bringing in Saquon Barkley? Like, does that ever happen if they get a championship win? Or is there more of a run it back kind of mindset for Howie? Like, I think he's not going to probably do exactly what he did after Super Bowl 52 if they win in Super Bowl 57 and completely run it back and re-sign everybody. I think he learned his lesson, but would they have made the dramatic changes on the coaching staff? Would they have signed the top running back in the open market in Saquon Barkley? Like, I'm not so sure. So maybe they do win it. Maybe Super Bowl 57, that championship helps propel the Eagles into this dynastic status, and they also win Super Bowl 59 And maybe there's an Eagles dynasty right now going on rather than a Chiefs dynasty, because if the Chiefs lose that game in Super Bowl 57, Patrick Mahomes still only has one ring. So maybe that is the case. And maybe that Super Bowl does start what we're hoping now is about to start after Super Bowl 59. But I personally believe that going through that adversity in that championship game, going through what happened in 2023, going through that 2-2 start this year, that all created this championship team. And I don't think that a lot of that happens if you win that title. So that's kind of my take on what would have happened. Again, you still have a ring, but I'd much rather have the scenario that played out. And by the way, for Jalen Hurts, from a legacy perspective, I actually think even though he would have pulled off that performance, turning it into a ring, like, which would have been incredible. One of the best performances of all time goes down with a ring. It feels right. Like, that's justice served. But again, if they don't get back this year, that his legacy is kind of hurt, because now he has 2 elite Super Bowl performances and he has a ring. And it's because of that loss. So that's kind of my take on what would have happened if they won Super Bowl 57. And I think looking back now, like, yeah, at the time, of course you would have wanted that win. And it was that game ripped your heart out. I mean, I didn't get over that game for 2 years. And until this Super Bowl, that game was always hanging over my head. But I will say, looking back now, I think everything happened for a reason, truly, and I wouldn't trade the story they have for that scenario playing out instead. Interestingly enough, the Eagles got to Super Bowl 57, not mainly, but one of the main reasons was because they traded for A.J. Brown. What happens in 2022 if they never trade for A.J. Brown during the draft? We'll get into that as we continue our What If series right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Locked On Eagles is brought to you today by FanDuel. Guys, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. For me, I'm a diehard Liverpool fan. The EPL's coming back soon. They're reigning champions. I'm going to be betting on a lot of Liverpool games. We've got some golf tournaments coming up this summer, too. I've been trying to get more into golf, and I think through FanDuel, that'll help me for sure. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning in baseball, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can get bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets. All you got to do is win that first bet. So for me, I love to hate watch the Colorado Rockies. I'm sorry to any Rockies fans out there, but they're a terrible baseball team. I love to just take the money line, just put a quick $5 on whoever's playing the Rockies, put that team money line on FanDuel, put $5 on it. If you win, and you're normally going to, you'll get $150 back in bonus bets. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we are continuing on our What If series that we kicked back off today on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Haven't done this in 3 years, but now there's been a lot that's happened since. We've got some Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts What Ifs to talk about this week. Today we're getting into 2022 What Ifs. Segment 1, I discussed what if the Eagles won Super Bowl 57. They got the job done, and they beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs the first time. How does that change 2023 and 2024? Let me know what you think. Hit us up. How do you think this all plays out? Hit us up at Locked On Birds on X, or my personal X account is at DiBiase-LOE. You could also always hit us up on our YouTube community page as well. Them getting to Super Bowl 57, though, a main part of the reason they got there was because they traded for A.J. Brown during the 2022 NFL draft. That is, to me, still to this day, one of the most memorable, not just like live reactions that I've had, and it was live on our draft show, so it's even more memorable. We have it on camera. I was reading the tweet to Gino as Adam Schefter sent it out as the news broke. It's one of the most unforgettable moments because it was just so unexpected, and it was such a giant name, and the Eagles were about to be on the clock. They had already traded up for Jordan Davis. Like, that moment is one of my favorite moments in Eagles history. Like, not just offseason moments like where you combine like the games. That is such an iconic memory for me and my Eagles fandom and doing this podcast. It's like, to me, one of the best moments we've ever had on this show. Let's say that doesn't happen. Do things change for Jalen Hurts and his career trajectory? Devontae Smith. Do the Eagles get to Super Bowl 57? Do they win Super Bowl 59? I'm not saying A.J. Brown is the main reason that the Eagles have had the success they have had over the last 3 years. But I will say, of all the moves individually, like again, it's a combination of everything that's helped them get to where they are. But of every individual move they've made, I will say since the start of 2022, when they went from good to great, from a wild card team that had no business being in the same building as the reigning champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they got blown out of Tampa Bay. That team had no business as the 7 seed playing Tom Brady and the Bucs. Like, they just weren't on the same planet when it comes to a caliber of a team. Like, they were not a championship contender. To go from that to the very next year being a few plays away from being champions themselves, one move that helped the most in that change, I think, is trading for A.J. Brown. Trading for A.J. Brown, I think, turned Jalen Hurts from an elite running quarterback that had significant issues as a pocket passer from an accuracy perspective, from throwing with anticipation over the middle of the field, pre-snap reads, how to handle the blitz. Like, Jalen had so much work still to be done when it comes to the fundamentals of playing quarterback, but he was clutch. He was a high floor player because he was clutch. He was a good leader. He was mobile. He had a great arm for the deep ball. Like, he was explosive. But again, it was Jalen Hurts was kind of the exact example of what the Eagles did. Like, they went from good to great, and he went from good to great. A.J. Brown is the main reason I think Jalen Hurts was able to be an MVP runner-up in 2022. And so if that doesn't happen, what happens? Like, you could make the argument A.J. Brown is the biggest Jenga piece outside of Jalen Hurts on this offense since 2022. Like, you take him away, and maybe they go back to who they were in 2021. It's either him, like removing Jalen Hurts, it's either him or Lane Johnson. Like, I don't even think it's Saquon Barkley, because look what they did in 2022 without Saquon Barkley. If they never trade for A.J. Brown, like, what's the alternative plan at wide receiver? I mean, Jahan Dotson was only a few picks ahead of that spot that they were in, that they gave that pick to the Titans for A.J. Brown. The Titans themselves, with that pick, took Treylon Burks. Like, do they end up with a Dotson or a Burks as Devontae Smith's wide receiver 2? Do they wait until the second round? Do they go for the next receiver that was off the board was my guy, Christian Watson out of North Dakota State, ends up going to the Green Bay Packers. Do they go with Christian Watson? Maybe they take George Pickens instead of Cam Jurgens in the second round. They were back-to-back picks. Pickens was actually picked right after, I should say, Cam Jurgens. So maybe that plays out. Like, maybe they draft a rookie in the first or second round again. But looking at those players and where their careers have panned out, like, Dotson's a solid player. Christian Watson has dealt with a lot of injuries. When he plays, he's solid. He's a good wide receiver too. I think Dotson can still be a good wide receiver too. George Pickens is an extremely explosive player, but he's not a true wide receiver 1. Like, these guys still would have been solid. They would have been an upgrade over Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor, who they were in 2021. But they would have. A.J. Brown is a top 3 receiver in football. So I think that football team would have been better in 2022. They still would have been a playoff team. I think they would have been better than who they were in 21. They would not have been a 7 seed. I think they still could have won the division. Jalen Hurts, I still think, takes another step, but is he an MVP candidate without A.J. Brown? Do they make the Super Bowl without A.J. Brown? If instead it's Dotson or Pickens or Christian Watson or Treylon Burks, like, no, I don't think so. Again, I think A.J. Brown, even over bringing in Saquon Barkley, trading for A.J. Brown was the biggest individual move that turned you into who you are today compared to who you were 4 years ago. I do think one person that benefits individually is Devontae Smith. I do think if they never trade for A.J. Brown and they make more of an actual wide receiver 2-like move, Devontae Smith emerges as an elite top-tier wide receiver 1. from a statistical standpoint as well. Like, he puts up those numbers that A.J. Brown is putting up now that you see from Justin Jefferson and you've seen from Tyreek Hill the last few years in Miami. Like, Devontae, I think if A.J. Brown never comes in 2022, in year 2, I think Devontae's putting up those numbers. So that's one thing I think would have changed in a positive way for a player, is that Devontae Smith, I think, emerges and is seen as truly a top-tier wide receiver. You guys know that's my stance on Smitty. If he had that kind of workload, he'd be that player. I think if AJ doesn't come in, Devontae kind of has that similar effect. Again, this team wouldn't be nearly who they are today, but I do think, the trajectory would have still been going up. Jalen Hurts still would have improved. The Eagles' offense as a whole, I think, would have been a more balanced attack. They would have been more improved in the passing game. I think they could have won a playoff game, but I think they could have won the division, but I don't think they make the Super Bowl. No way. I truly believe A.J. Brown, out of any non-quarterback on the offense, removing, it's him and Lane Johnson. Like, those are the two biggest Jenga pieces, and I think that's been the case since 2022. And remember, it's interesting, A.J. Brown wasn't even their original plan. Like, they wanted to trade for Calvin Ridley. They sounded like they were going to have a deal done. They were going to trade, a second-round pick to Atlanta for Calvin Ridley, and then Ridley got suspended because of gambling, so he was out for the entire year. So, again, luck plays a huge part in the NFL. Like, they really did get lucky that, and Calvin Ridley's a solid player. He's better than all those rookies that I mentioned. He had 1,000 yards last year with the worst team in football, the Tennessee Titans. With Will Levis, he found a way to still get over 1,000. So Calvin Ridley's been a very solid receiver. Him and Devontae Smith would have been a really good 1-2 punch. But again, A.J. Brown, as like the plan B or C, you added maybe the best receiver in football. If not, he's top 3. And so it is crazy the way it played out, and it played out the best way possible. Sometimes the thing that you don't plan ends up being the best scenario, the best case scenario. And A.J. Brown coming into Philadelphia was certainly that. I have an interesting question, though, to wrap up today's show. How long, I was thinking about this, looking at Brown's numbers, looking at his age, his injury history, just thinking about the Eagles' future. How long can A.J. Brown keep this up? Because I really do think right now he's the best receiver in the NFL. What does the past say about players like him at his position? How long can he be an elite producer, wide receiver? We'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. All right, Eagles fans, we're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. So it's interesting. I was looking at A.J. Brown's, doing the what if the Eagles didn't trade for A.J. Brown, how do things go differently? I was looking at how ridiculous his numbers have been, how his Titans numbers looked. Then thinking about the future, his age, thinking about like records that he could continue breaking within the franchise's history, within league history. What's the future hold for A.J. Brown? And I asked the question, like, how long can we expect him to keep up the clip that he's putting up every single year? Like, no Eagle receiver has ever had 3 straight seasons of 1,000 yards until A.J. Brown. He has the single-season franchise receiving record that he broke in 2022. He has the NFL record for the most consecutive games of at least 120 receiving yards. Like, can he keep this up and become like the franchise's all-time leading receiver? Right now, he's 28 years old. So, that's why I started to think about this, because he's creeping towards 30. And he's a bigger receiver that has had injuries in the past, but he hasn't had any like real serious injuries in 3 seasons in Philadelphia that's kept him out for a very long time. Like, no season-ending injuries, no injuries that have kept him out for a month plus. Like, this past year, he missed a couple games the first half of the year, but then he was back and he was good to go for the rest of the season. So for me, like, asking that question, like, how long can the Eagles bank on him being the go-to guy in the passing game, or at least a top 2 guy with him and Devontae Smith? I went back and I compared him to 4 different receivers that were elite players within a similar skill set, that were similar style players. So I brought up Julio Jones, Terrell Owens, Calvin Johnson, and Mike Evans. All elite top 5 players at their position, the majority of their career. All bigger bodies, like they all were similar players to A.J. Brown, stylistically, physical players that definitely took a lot of hits. how well did they do after their 6th season? Because A.J. Brown's heading into year 7. So after these guys were done with year 6, statistically, how long were they able to maintain their elite top 5 level of play? Well, let's start with Julio Jones, who's A.J. Brown's idol. After year 6, Julio Jones had 3 straight seasons of at least 1,300 yards. And then he dropped off. Then he had a season where he almost hit 900, and then he kind of plummeted. He dealt with injuries. He went to Tennessee, and then Tampa Bay, and then Philadelphia, and then he was done. Like, you could see the drop-off. It was quick, and it was sudden, but it happened. And it was around like year 9, year 10. So Julio after year 6, A.J. Brown's heading into year 7. He had 3 more seasons where he had at least 1,300 receiving yards, and then it dropped off. Terrell Owens, another player that was elite, one of the greatest players at his position, similar style of player to A.J. Brown. Terrell Owens, after year 6, had 6 more 1,000-yard seasons, and after that had a couple more 800-yard years, or 800-plus. His last year, actually, in Cincinnati, in 2009, he had over 900 receiving yards. That was his last year in the NFL. So, T.O., if you want to feel optimistic about A.J. Brown doing this still for a long time, look at Terrell Owens. Now, of course, that's a Hall of Famer, so, Terrell Owens is unique circumstance, but look at Calvin Johnson, even a guy that retired early because of injuries. After year 6, he only played 3 more years, but all 3 of those seasons he surpassed 1,000 yards. Mike Evans, after year 6, he's played in 5 seasons since then, has had 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So A.J. Brown, I think, even though like that 30 is creeping up, and once you hit 30, especially at a position like receiver, you start to wonder how long can these guys still do it. I think if you look at other players, and that's only a sample size of 4 guys, but when you look at players that were similar in how good they were, similar in their style and their build, and their injury history, Julio Jones, again, only 3 straight seasons with over 1,000 yards, but would you sign up for 3 more years of A.J. Brown getting 1,300 yards, and then he has a couple 700 and 900-yard years? Like, I'll sign up for that right now. 3 more years of him being a top 3, top 5 receiver in football. Like, then he's 31, 32. I'll take that. Terrell Owens had 6 more 1,000-yard seasons. Like, we could be talking about A.J. Brown at 33, 34, still doing this. Mike Evans has had 5 straight 1,000-yard years since his year 6 season. So I think A.J. Brown can still do it. He just has to stay healthy, can't suffer any more, and he hasn't in a long time, any real serious injuries. And if he does that, I started to ask the question, like, can he eventually get close to Harold Carmichael's all-time franchise receiving record? He needs, right now, A.J. Brown needs 4,947 more receiving yards to break Carmichael's record. So if he gets 4 more years of at least 1,000 yards, he'd be 32 years old. That doesn't feel unrealistic for him to get 4 more years of that kind of production. And that's just he needs 4,947. So he needs a little over 1,000 yards a year to break that. I think he's going to have a couple more seasons of 13 plus 100, and he'll have maybe a couple more years over 1,000 or over 800. If he can play through this contract, I think A.J. Brown the Eagles don't throw it fewer than any teams in football every single year like they did last year, which, by the way, he still had 1,000 yards in that kind of season. If they don't do that every year and they start to throw more again, like 2022, 2023, he can get back to a couple seasons of 1,400 receiving yards plus. I think he could break the record. And what's interesting? I was looking at this record and where Devontae Smith is as well. He's only, he has like 20 less receiving yards than A.J. Brown as an Eagle since 2021. And Devontae Smith is 2 years younger. He's only 26. And he basically needs the same amount as A.J. Brown to break Harold Carmichael's record. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, my take here is I wouldn't be surprised if A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith break Harold Carmichael's receiving record. And actually, between the two, if I had to bet one breaks it, I think it would be Devontae Smith because he's 2 years younger and he's on the same path as Brown statistically, like how far he is away from Carmichael. He's, again, around like 5,000 more receiving yards. I think at least one of them could do it. I think both could do it. I think both are going to do it. And what an amazing story that would be. After the dark days, like right after you leave the dark ages of your receiving history with Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and all of that garbage, you then enter into the next era. You literally have your two all-time leading receivers. Like, what a cool story that would be. I think they could do it. I think A.J. Brown can do it. I think he's going to age well, and I'm not trying to get rid of this duo. I'm not trying to shove these guys out the building like every year we do with A.J. Brown. I know I just said on the squad show the other day, I wonder what he wants long-term for his career, but if he stays in Philadelphia and prioritizes winning and trying to make a dynasty here, I think he could break Carmichael's record, and I think he can do what, Terrell Owens did for his future and what Mike Evans is doing right now, and Julio Jones did as well. I think he truly can. Don't expect a drop off from A.J. Brown anytime soon, in my opinion. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Right now, we got 3 to 4 shows a week, but in a couple weeks, when training camp comes back around, we'll be back to Monday through Friday shows. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.